Hi everybody, my name's Tori and I'm the Grubby Pirate. And today I'm going to talk with you about why I decided to retire to the Philippines and why you might or might not want to do the same thing. So I decided to retire after a lifelong involvement in the ski and snowboard industry, which meant I just spent basically my entire life freezing my ass off. And there was 4 contributing factors that I was looking for when I decided to relocate after retirement. And for me, basically there were only 4 factors that I was looking for in a spot to relocate. Number 1 was the language barrier. Number 2 was the weather. Number 3, the cost of living. And number 4, maybe the most important thing, the sex life. And now I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about each of the pros and cons of the factors that I decided upon, starting with the language. The language barrier. I really needed somewhere that I could speak English, they could speak English, and we could all understand each other. I've always had a problem with languages. Now, everybody in the Philippines speaks or at least understands English. They really do, everybody. So that made it very easy compared to countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indo, anywhere else I really wanted to be. So again, language barrier was number 1. For those people that enjoyed discovering new languages and really want, the challenge, then you might want to choose one of those other countries I just mentioned. But for me, language was so important, and that was basically the number 1 reason why I chose the Philippines. Now, we all have different needs and desires, but those were mine. Whether you like them or not, they're mine. I don't know what yours are going to be, but that's for you to think about. And that's the best part about it. Now, weather was a second factor in my decision. Like I mentioned, after spending my entire life basically freezing my ass off, I really at that time thought I wanted nothing to ever do with snow again. And for a long time I didn't. But now, after spending these 5 years in this heat, and believe me, the heat, if you've never been to the Philippines, it's really hot. And not only that, it's always hot, day and night. I've never been below 26 degrees here, Celsius. And of course the daily temperature is anywhere from 30 to 32, but the humidity is killer as well. That took a lot of getting used to. I used to sweat so profusely, people thought I was sick just looking at me sweating. I've acclimatized now, but I still have never in 5 years been cold in the Philippines. Even at night, doesn't matter. Even in the rain, it's still 32. Doesn't matter. It's always hot here. So that's one thing to consider. If you don't like the heat, you're gonna have a hell of a time. And you know what? For a couple weeks on a vacation, that's one thing, but 365 days a year, and that is 365 days a year, whether it's rainy season or not, because rainy season just means you get rain, and that's periodically, it's usually every day, sometimes only 30 minutes, sometimes a day, but it's still super hot. So again, that's gonna take some time to get used to, but it's not all bad. Now we're moving on to the cost of living. Again, another factor for me deciding to move to the Philippines. Now, when you compare the cost of living in the Philippines to Australia, United States, Canada, most of Europe, well, pretty much all of Europe, definitely, it's a lot less. But you know what? It's not as drastic as you might think. People that think they're gonna come here with $5 in their bank account and live like a king, it's not gonna happen, okay? It's definitely not gonna happen, believe me. Now, compared to where I live, it's definitely a lot less expensive, but I definitely don't live like a king. I do have a beautiful resort, I'm very fortunate for that, but you know what? There's no chance in hell I could ever do what I have here in North America where I come from. But again, you need to save a lot. I retired at 50 years old. I would have had to continue working. There's no way I could have retired in North America with what I had. And to be honest, I still work 3 months a year. I do travel back to Canada for 3 months to make a living, to support my life here in the Philippines, because even though with this resort, it's still not enough to sustain the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to and what I really want. But again, it's different for everybody. Don't get pissy. Everybody is different. I know people that live on very little here. I know people that come here and spend a lot of money and lead extravagant life. It's different for everybody. I'm pretty modest. I have a nice place. I love it. Again, it's not the fanciest place in the world, but it's my place. And as I mentioned, I really enjoy it. But the cost of living, like I mentioned, compared to most places, yes, it is a lot less, but it's not drastic. It's not like it used to be. You used to be able to come to Southeast Asia, or what they call a third world country. Well, you know what? These are not third world countries anymore, everybody. They're developing countries. They're expensive. The island I live on, Siargao, real estate here is almost as expensive as it is in North America. It's crazy. Now, it never used to be, and it's changing fast. Even in the 5 years I've been here, real estate value on this island in particular has skyrocketed, 10 times, but it's because this is the place to be right now. But in other parts of the Philippines, I could definitely live for a lot less, but it's not where I want to be. This is where I want to be. You've got to pay for what you want and where you want to be. And now to the fourth topic on my list. Pretty short list, huh? But I am a simpleton. Now, the fourth item, as I mentioned earlier, was the sex life. Yeah, I hate to say it, but definitely. One of the reasons of moving down here was the stories and tables I was told about all the beautiful women. You know what? They were definitely true. It's a great spot if you're single, which I was, okay? And it's a great spot to come down. Sex in the Philippines, sex in Southeast Asia is a lot more open, a lot more accepted than it is in most countries in the world. And I'm not talking about prostitution, okay? That's a whole different ballgame. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I'm just talking about sex life in general, women in general, guys in general, and the little utopia that it is here in the Philippines. In my opinion anyway, it's incredible. I was lucky enough to find an amazing woman who I'm now married to. So sex life in the Philippines for me is great. And I can almost guarantee that sex life for you in the Philippines will be just as good. There's only one way to find out, and that's to get your ass down here and see for yourself. And as you can see, I definitely overachieved. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. Those are the reasons why I decided to retire in the Philippines. Those are some of the reasons why, and perhaps why you shouldn't. But again, everybody's different. And you know what? Live life to your fullest and your expectations. It's the only way to go. Another reason for moving down here, living in the Philippines, retiring, was because I can. And I hope you can too. Life is different for everybody. That's my slice of life in the Philippines. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message anytime. No problem at all. And that's it for now, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and we hope you'll do us a favor, throw us a bone, and subscribe.